Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm giving you more J.G. Ballard in this video with the next story on my J.G. Ballard bibliography. This is number 32, and it's the last story I need to do before I can get into the Drowned World. Though it's going to be a little bit before the Drowned World shows up after this video is uploaded into YouTube, because I'm doing that one with Emily, recording this before Thanksgiving right now. Emily and I are going to be reading the book over the next couple of weeks. We'll be shooting the video on December 18th, and I won't have the video scheduled to go live on YouTube until January. I forget exactly when in January, but so I'm finishing up the Ballard stories that were published before The Drowned World, the novel length version of The Drowned World. Okay, just keep all that straight. I hope you did. So this is The Singing Statues. It's number 32 on my list. It was published in July of 1962. And my fingers are too big. I went to The Drowned World instead. Okay, Singing Statues. It's just a short story. It's another of the Vermillion Sands series, which is really Ballard's only major series, unlike most authors. This was published in the July 1962 issue of Fantastic. And of course, I have this story in multiple places naturally, just like everything else I do with Ballard. I do have a copy of the original issue of Fantastic where this story first appeared. And the cover art is an excellent illustration by Ed Emshwiller for the singing statue. And there's another really excellent illustration inside. For the story, again by Emshwiller. Terrific artist, love the artwork. Does a great job with this story, although Emshwiller, he's one that tended to persist with that the tendency that started in the early 1950s, really back in the 1940s, to put a lot of scantily clad girls in the illustrations. And sometimes it had something to do with the stories. Most often it really didn't. There might be a woman in the story, but there was never anything sexual with her. Well, they sexualized the woman for the artwork. And Emshwiller, he didn't always do that in his illustrations, but many of his illustrations are slanted towards that sort of thing. The cover isn't so bad, even though it really focuses on the girl's face. And the story does focus a lot on the woman. The interior illustration is a little bit more sexual, though still not inaccurate for the story, really. It still is kind of pandering to that sex sells mentality of the 1950s, which we have moved away from. I also have Vermillion Sands as collections. The whole series was collected into a book, and it's been published in a number of editions. This one I have the Carolyn Graff Masters of Science Fiction series. They published Vermillion Sands with a beautiful cover illustration. I'm not sure who did it. And I have one by Everyman Fiction. This is a British edition that I got. There was a store in Milwaukee that specialized in British editions. They opened in the 1980s on Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. And that's where I first was able to get a hold of a number of really good J.G. Ballard trade paperbacks, this being one of them. And since I have the Vermillion Sands stories in a number of different editions, I'm thinking of putting this British edition out on um, my online store, probably Etsy, and putting it up for sale. Um, Anybody interested in the book can feel free to contact me. I'm willing to sell it because I have so many copies in my library. I really don't need that one, though I do like it. It's got a nice cover. It's a nice book. And of course, the singing statues is in the Bible, the um, complete short stories of J.G. Ballard. And there are other editions of Vermillion Sands out there that I don't have. It's been one of Ballard's most popular. Um, it's a collection. It's not a novel. You got to understand that this is a collection of all the different short stories set in the Vermillion Sands world. And the singing statue is one of those short stories. So, okay, what is the singing statues about? Well, it's set in Vermillion Sands, of course, which is kind of like it's described as like a Palm Springs resort town for very rich. Starts out being established by very wealthy people and movie stars, but then it attracts a lot of artists and stuff. And when it goes into decline, people are going there to get that um, atmosphere of the rich and artistic, but to be able to get it cheap. At this point, there's still a lot of rich people living in Vermillion Sands, and the story focuses around a woman. I forget her name. I didn't write it down, but she is super wealthy, and she's often seen in art galleries buying artwork. Well, the story also involves a sculptor who happens to be in an art gallery where he has some of his sculptures. And the sculptures are a type of sculpture that are done by many artists in this future timeline. They're statues that let off, the statues produce sound, kind of like soundscapes, in reaction to the people that are walking by. There's something about the technology that can pick up um, the feelings and attitudes and moods of the people that are nearby and will reproduce it as sound and create a soundscape. So the sculptor has some of his sculptures in this gallery, but they're defective. There's something went wrong with them. So he's there trying to figure it out. He's not really figuring it out when the woman walks in, and um, the gallery owner is taking her around. When they get by his sculpture, the sculptor happens to be inside the sculpture, and he starts singing into a microphone, which then goes into whatever tech turns it into a soundscape, alters what he's singing and turns it into a soundscape that people can actually hear. And she, of course, loves it and buys the sculpture. Um, Story proceeds from there. I don't want to say any more about it because I don't want to um, spoil this. It has Ballard's usual kind of surreal and poetic imagery and his impeccable writing. The characters are all flawed people with unrealistic expectations, and they're very, very well written. This is more of a character story than an idea story. The the point of the story is to build a picture of these characters and their interactions, as well as build them into the surreal Vermillion Sands landscape. So there's, the singing statues technology is, it's a part of this whole thing, but it's more just like a tool to allow Ballard to explore these characters. Um, really, really good story. I didn't feel it was as good as some of the other Ballard stories I've recently read, so I'm not going to give this one a top tail, but it's short by not much. It's a really good story, and if you read it, you might disagree with me and say that should have been a top tail. I mean, it's up there. It's really close. So I do recommend this. I think you should get a copy of Vermillion Sands and read all of them. I still have a few I haven't read yet, but all of them that I've read are amazing stories, and I just love this world, love this surreal place that he built here. It's really great. Um, and it's too bad he didn't write more Vermilion Sands. And sometimes as readers we want more, but really the author, sometimes the author said what he wanted to say and doesn't have any more to write, and we just have to accept that and go on. So have you ever read The Singing Statues? If so, leave your thoughts in the comments section of the video. I hope you'll like the video and subscribe to our channel and come on back for a lot more J.G. Ballard. Like I said earlier, the next J.G. Ballard video I will be putting up is me and Emily both discussing the novel-length version of The Drowned World. I have previously read and discussed the novella version that was published in Science Fantasy magazine. I did that on my own without Emily, and so you can go back and watch that one. But I am going to read the novel, and I'm going to be kind of talking about the differences a bit, as well as talking about the novel itself and, you know, whether or not it's a great novel. I don't know yet. I've never read the Drowned World novel, so it'll be interesting. I hope you'll come back and join me for that and all the other videos I do here on the Telltale Books YouTube channel.